US and Iran, set for high-stakes nuclear talks in Geneva as threat of war looms. Iran says lifting sanctions part and parcel of any deal with US. France's Macron eyes fighter jet deal in India. 2 killed in northeastern U.S. ice rink shooting. The United States and Iran are holding indirect nuclear talks in Geneva today, seeking to resolve their decades-long dispute amid rising military tensions in the region. The negotiations, mediated by Oman, bring together U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. However, signs of compromise remain limited. Even as diplomacy unfolds, U.S. officials say the military is preparing contingency plans for possible operations against Iran if President Donald Trump authorizes an attack. At the same time, Iran has launched naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil route, underscoring the fragile security environment. Washington and Israel believe Iran could pursue nuclear weapons, while Tehran insists its program is strictly peaceful, despite enriching uranium to levels close to weapons grade. The renewed talks follow earlier negotiations that collapsed amid military strikes last year. Iran has also faced domestic unrest, fueled by economic hardship and international sanctions. Key disagreements persist. The United States wants broader discussions that include Iran's missile capabilities, while Tehran says it will only negotiate limits on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, and will not abandon uranium enrichment entirely. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledged that reaching a deal will be difficult but said Washington remains willing to try. The high-stakes discussions are being closely watched worldwide, as their outcome could determine whether the crisis moves toward diplomacy or further escalation. Iran has stated that lifting U.S. sanctions is a fundamental requirement for any nuclear agreement, as negotiations between Tehran and Washington get underway in Geneva. Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Bakai described sanctions relief as an inseparable part of a potential deal, emphasizing that it must accompany any resolution on the nuclear issue. The remarks highlight one of the central sticking points in the talks, with Iran seeking economic relief while the United States pushes for limits on Tehran's nuclear activities. The outcome of the Geneva negotiations is being closely watched, as both sides attempt to ease tensions and avoid further escalation. French President Emmanuel Macron is meeting Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Mumbai today, beginning a 3-day visit aimed at strengthening cooperation in artificial intelligence, defense, and trade. A key focus of the talks is a potential multi-billion-dollar agreement for 114 additional Rafale fighter jets, a deal analysts have described as the contract of the century. Most of the aircraft are expected to be manufactured in India, supporting New Delhi's push for greater domestic defense production. Both leaders have expressed optimism about deepening bilateral ties. Modi said he looks forward to advancing the partnership, while Macron signaled plans to expand cooperation even further. During the visit, the two leaders will also inaugurate India's first helicopter final assembly line, a joint project between Tata Group and Airbus, highlighting growing industrial collaboration. Macron's itinerary includes paying tribute to victims of the 2008 Mumbai attacks before traveling to New Delhi later this week for an artificial intelligence summit. France has become one of India's key defense and economic partners, with annual trade reaching roughly 15 billion euros and significant French investment flowing into the country. The discussions are also expected to touch on broader global issues, including economic uncertainty, China's regional influence, and the war in Ukraine, where India has maintained a neutral stance while continuing energy ties with Russia. Observers note that strong personal rapport between Macron and Modi could further reinforce the strategic partnership as both nations seek greater influence on the global stage. A shooting at an ice rink in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, has left at least 2 victims dead, along with the suspected gunman, and 3 others critically injured, authorities confirmed. Police say the incident occurred during a high school hockey game, sending players and spectators scrambling for safety as gunfire erupted inside the arena. Early investigations suggest the attack may have been targeted and linked to a possible family dispute. The injured were rushed to hospital, while officials have not yet released the identities of those involved. Witnesses described scenes of panic, with teenagers fleeing the rink and athletes taking cover in locker rooms as multiple shots were heard. The tragedy comes amid ongoing concerns over gun violence in the United States. Data shows more than 400 mass shootings were recorded last year, contributing to over 14,000 deaths excluding suicides. The latest attack took place just miles from Brown University, where another mass shooting occurred 2 months ago, underscoring the persistent challenge of firearm-related violence across the country. Investigators are continuing to examine the circumstances surrounding the shooting,